the one thing that I've always learned is you don't come in and think you know it all, right? Because you don't. You don't know a darn thing. You don't know why people made decisions in years prior that have led us to this point. So for me, it was doing a lot of listening, and that's really difficult for me. I'm not the best listener, but doing a lot of listening and then figuring out, okay, how can I earn my team's trust? And when they recognize, okay, this guy is giving me something that I didn't get before, that's useful, tangible, then all of a sudden, you know, that reception gets a lot easier and you move a lot faster.
Street Smart Podcast here in Midland, Texas at the Daniel Energy Partners Barbecue at the Upright Digital Coffee Lounge, I guess, coffee house, sponsored by Free Reign Coffee, which is delicious coffee, and I don't get paid for that. But talking with Brad Remley, and Brad and I have known each other now a long time, actually. I worked at Exterran together, and then I left, and then I came back. He hired me as a sales guy, working for him, and the company was ArchRock. They were transitioning right to ArchRock at that time, and then we parted ways, and now here we are. And Brad is COO
Correct.
Of Basin Energy, and man, thanks for being on the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no worries.
Look forward to talking.
When I was like, hey man, I got like these 30-minute window conversations, I was like, Brad's someone I could talk to for 30 minutes.
He'll fill it.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, that's right. I can ask a question and it's over.
Exactly.
But man, it's awesome to get to sit down and talk to you, and I just kind of want to learn more about how the transition from, you know, you were at Exterran and ArchRock for a long time. Mm-hmm. How long were you there?
Oh, 16 years.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
And you came to them from, was it
KPMG?
KPMG, that's
yep.
right. So but you're one of those guys it just stays at a place. And I remember I was having those conversations. You're like, I like the security of that, you know, those types of things. And then when I saw that you had left, and then your new role as COO, I was like, that's cool, man. And you're perfect for that. What was that transition like?
Well, it's scary.
Yeah.
To kind of leave the nest and you know, working for a company for so long, you built so much political capital, you know how to get things done. It's not that you're overly great at your job, you just know who to call.
You know the moves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so transitioning to a new organization, you don't necessarily know who to call, and you don't know where all the skeletons are. And then transitioning into a role of senior leadership. Exactly.
Where people are going to be asking you what to do. You're like, yeah, well, I don't know.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
got here last week, dude.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Like,
what I do know is, you know, the thing that I'm most proud of is that, you know, may not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'm going to figure it out.
Sure.
Right. And that's what we've been doing for the last 2.5 years, really building the Baseline brand and maturing the company. And you know, if I didn't have those 16 years at ArchRock working for mature leaders, I wouldn't have the success that I have today. I mean, you and I worked for a very process oriented, driven company. And when you're young, you hate process. Because it's rules.
Right.
It's constraining, right? And then as you get older and you recognize the value and the importance of process, it drives consistent results. And
well, it also drives freedom to execute, because you know, like, this is just going to happen because the process makes sure it happens.
Yep.
It frees you. It liberates you to be able to think about, like, okay, now how do I execute on that?
That's right. That's exactly right. And I think as you mature, you start to go, okay, process is super important. Protocols, we've got to have it, right? For that exact same reason, so that we know what is coming and how to deal with it when we get there. So that's what really, I didn't ever really like it, but I recognized that when I got into this new role, what I didn't like, I had to implement.
Right. Is that and that's when you realized it? It was like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, yeah.
That's why
I'm about to be that guy.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And it's no fun because people like to just be able to make decisions and there's no accountability. And
who wants to be told what to do?
That's exactly
ridiculous,
right.
Man.
Yep, for sure.
I could do that at home.
Yeah.
Easily.
That's right.
So you transitioned into the role, and you came into the company as COO, right?
Uh-huh.
And then how was that reception? And it's interesting whenever someone gets hired, especially at a role like that, into from the outside. Mm-hmm. And that's always, you're going to always have to navigate that. And then how big was Baseline when you got into the company?
It was right about 100 people.
Okay. And so that's not a big company.
No, it's very
It's
small.
not a small company either.
Yep.
It's definitely a company that's got enough size to it that you're dealing with some big company problems.
Sure.
And your customer base obviously is going to be accustomed to dealing with companies that do have more than 100 people.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you've got to think in that way.
Yep.
And you come into that role, what were some of the challenges that you faced immediately, and how were you received?
So the one thing that I've always learned is you don't come in and think you know it all, right? Because you don't. You don't know a darn thing. You don't know why people made decisions in years prior that have led us to this point. So for me, it was doing a lot of listening, and that's really difficult for me. I'm not the best listener, but doing a lot of listening and then figuring out, okay, how can I earn my team's trust? Because just a title doesn't give you trust.
No.
Right? You've got to earn that trust. And so for me, just identifying how I could add value to their day, where they look to me for something valuable. It's all about that value creation with your team. And when they recognize, okay, this guy is giving me something that I didn't get before, that's useful, tangible, then all of a sudden, that reception gets a lot easier and you move a lot faster. Just coming in and telling everybody they don't know what they're doing and this is the way that it should be. You've heard this analogy before, but there's a lot of different ways to the summit, right? There's a long, steady way, and then there's a super steep, dangerous way, right? And I think somewhere in the middle is the right place for Baseline, and that's kind of what I picked, because we've got to show results. It's a small company. Results are important. And that is another big difference coming from a large public company to a small company is the importance of hitting your results, achieving your budgets, those kind of things.
A large publicly traded company, iniquity can be hidden for a long time.
That's exactly right.
And a smaller company, the consequence of your decision is accelerated.
Absolutely.
And so right or wrong, you're going to learn, and you move from it.
Yeah, when you work for a small private company, right, they've got options. They're choosing this investment now because it's generating this return, right? And so if it starts not generating that return, they start questioning, okay, is this the business that I really want to be invested in, right? Because I have options. But when you're a big public company, that is your business forever. It's never changing.
Your options are return on your shares.
That's exactly right. And so I think getting my mind around that and the pace, it is true. When you work for a small private company, there is a lot less red tape. You can make decisions crazy fast. That's a double-edged sword. And sometimes the long, drawn-out decision making, can be of benefit, right? I heard Jeff Bezos say this one time, and I thought it was really, really interesting. He said, there's one-door decisions and two-door decisions. He said, two-door decisions, we push those decisions deep into the company, and we allow those folks to make, your middle management to make those decisions very rapidly. And the reasoning behind the two-door was that, okay, if I go through that door and I recognize, oh, dang, I made the wrong decision, then I can hurry up and go back out. That's why it's called a two-door decision. And those, we make them really, really fast, and again, we push them way down. Well, then there's the one-door decision, which we need to really slow down, make sure we're making the right decision, counsel a lot of folks, the owners, executive leadership, the folks below you, because once you go through that door, it shuts.
You're there.
You're there.
Yeah.
Right? And so I've kind of thought about that from the perspective is let's give the autonomy to the folks on the two-door decisions so that they've got some ownership and some accountability, but let's be really, really smart about the one-door decisions and be slow and thoughtful. And the good thing about that is there's 75% more two-door decisions than there are one-door decisions, and so you don't have to do it that much.
That's true. Yeah, most of the decisions are two-door decisions, honestly, and especially like you said with a small company. You can make decisions really fast, which is a double-edged sword, but you can also reverse those decisions fairly quickly too without having to talk to a lot of people.
That's exactly right, yeah.
And interesting, like Wildcat we're ISO 9001 certified company. We have 200 employees. And whenever I have to do the audit every year with the auditor, the question I always get is like, how is this happening so quickly? I'm like, literally, I'm the only person that does this. So like, if someone needs a document changed, they text me, I change the number, send it back to them, put it on SharePoint. Like it happens like that, and they're like, "Man, you don't run like an A/B test." It's like, "No, we're not an auto manufacturer. We're not doing any of that stuff." And they're like, one of the funniest ones was we had a corrective action, and it was on a tool that had failed downhole, a drilling operation, and she was like, "How do you know the solution worked? Without running like a 60, 90-day test?" I was like, "If it didn't work, first of all, our customers are not shy about telling us it's not working." But it goes back in the hole and runs 24 hours a day. We have plenty of data sets, trust me, to close this sucker out in 4 days, But so how was that transition, though? I mean, KPMG, huge company. Exterran, huge company. ArchRock, huge company. Baseline, got 100 folks.
Well, it was nice because you get to know everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm pretty transparent. If you want to know what I'm thinking, I'm gonna tell you. It could be a very wordy answer, right? But I'm gonna tell you. And I really appreciated that about working in a small company was you could have that conversation with the technician. You could have that conversation with the service manager. You could pull alongside them and say, "Hey, why did you make that decision?" Right? Help me understand what you were thinking, and let me kind of share with you the wisdom that I've accumulated over the last couple of years working in a very similar environment to help spur you along, right? So I think that's really, really fun. In fact, we're doing a leadership training tomorrow for our, ops managers and service managers out here. And, it's myself and my director of HR, we're leading that. And that's what's cool about a small company is that if you're in a big company, no. We're gonna bring in a consultant who doesn't know anything about the business.
We're gonna pay him a whole bunch of
money. And yeah, we wear a lot of hats in a small company, but you get to scratch a lot of itches, right? And so for me, one thing that I've always told folks is like, okay, in the mornings, hurry up and get what your boss wants you to get done. Get that done first thing. Just get it out of the way. And then the rest of the day, do what satisfies you, what motivates you, right? And that's what's kind of neat about this is, this doesn't necessarily fall in the purview of a COO responsibility to conduct a service manager leadership training, but it's something that really, really excites me. And what's neat about a small company is I get to do that.
Sure.
But
you got to guard against that too. I interviewed a guy on my podcast, Chad Robichaux, and you can look him up. He's actually pretty famous. His story's amazing. Anyhow, he runs a nonprofit called the Mighty Oaks Foundation there in Houston, and they talk to first responders and everybody. It's a huge organization. It's been around since 2012 at this point. But he also has this other side nonprofit called Save Our Allies, where they go around the world. And like when we were pulling out of Afghanistan, they had a bunch, like there were civilians getting other Afghan refugees out, like 17,000 other ones. That's him. And so I'm like, you have these huge organizations that you're the leader of, and you still go to Ukraine, you still go to, Afghanistan. How do you get it done? And his answer to me was, as the leader of an organization, if there's something that someone else can do, even if it's something you really like doing, you need to let them do it. And so that's something in a small organization, and I've been guilty of this. You have to guard against that, being like, well, I really like creating videos, and so what? It takes 12 hours for me to get that 10-minute thing done.
Yep.
What are you doing to guard against that? Is that something you've recognized? And then, so what are you guarding against? How are you guarding against it?
So I think you have to assess the organization and the maturity of the organization, right? Are the folks that you have in place capable of? And capable is maybe not the right word, but are they going to?
Are they prepared?
Are they prepared? Are they going to be able to make the decisions that help support your vision? You've got to build that trust there, right? And so part of that is sort of laying out what the vision is, sort of the process with which we lead, and just making sure we're all on the same page so that we get consistency throughout the organization. Because what we don't want is to delegate it and then all of a sudden the organization gets pulled in two different directions.
Or deviates from the vision so far.
Exactly.
That it becomes a one-door deviation.
Yep. So I think, from a transparency and a leadership perspective, conducting that first and really setting the foundation of sort of how I think, the vision that I see for the company, the confidence and courage these guys need to have day in and day out to manage their business, not just take care of the customer, but really run their business, giving them that autonomy and that confidence is something that I'm really passionate about. And that's kind of, so you're right, you do got to guard against it because you can load up your plate.
Oh yeah.
And then you can be, one thing that our CEO often says is he's like, hey, don't spend your time doing a task that's way below your value. I know you can do it, right? We all know you can do it, but that doesn't mean that you should do it, right? And just because you can doesn't mean you should. And you've got to process that a lot of the times, because we all got here in senior leadership roles because we were good at something, and that usually starts as an individual contributor role.
Yeah.
Right, where you got that satisfaction, that tangible feeling of I've accomplished something today, and then you morph into the COO role, and you don't accomplish anything any day. It's all influence.
Yeah, well, you
right?
don't accomplish anything that you can hold up at the end of the day and go, look at this.
Nailed it. And so sometimes you're like, okay, that's hard.
Sure.
to get used to.
Yeah.
And that's been a challenge for me. And often, to your point, that's a trap, because you'll fall back into some of that tangible, satisfying work, like cutting your own grass, and you're like, yes, I did that. That feels good.
Yeah, so
I can see it.
Don still is like, we could pay someone to do this. I was like, yeah, but then I like to look back and go, look at how straight that is.
This is my only win this week.
I'm
not giving it up.
I need exercise on the weekend too. So, but
West Texas wind. You gotta love it.
Blooper reel. So, but to your point, you can only free yourself up to do that if you're giving your team the soft skills to execute. And doing leadership trainings and things like that are important. And so it's great that you're doing that. One other thing that I've noticed that you're doing at Baseline is your social media presence. Mm-hmm. Didn't see that at all before you were there. Don't know if it was there. Don't know if I'm seeing it now because you and I are connected on social media. Possibly. But it does seem like there's a larger emphasis placed on that at this point. I'm sure that's intentional. Mm-hmm. We've seen that at Wildcat pay dividends for us. People think we're a much larger company, and I'm like, yeah, that's intentional. What are some of your thoughts around the use of social media and how important that is in terms of growing a business, especially a small business?
So this is where it gets really difficult for me, because
I know that's not really your thing.
That's not my thing. That's where it gets difficult. I've got to separate myself.
You don't have an Instagram account.
I don't have anything.
You don't have a Facebook account.
LinkedIn. That's it. Yep.
Right. You probably still print a boarding pass to get on airplanes.
No, I've evolved. I use the app.
I have the app and I print one. Redundant systems.
But what I have learned is that's a very, very powerful tool, and we've got to be able to utilize it. And so that is one of those things that you need to do it. It's not something that I'm passionate about, so we delegate that, and that's why you see that, because there are folks that are really, really good at that and really understand how to connect with the customer, with the employee, with just the overall market, to kind of share what we're doing, right? And that's exactly why you have seen an increase. So that's not just because you and I have connected on LinkedIn. That's because we are hitting it with much greater consistency, and we've made an investment. We tried to do it all in-house years ago, and we put out some really, really good content, but it was slow. And what I have learned, because I do a lot of research, is it's about saturation.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about quality as much as it is saturation. And so we want to measure both, because we do want to ensure that we're good stewards of our reputation and our values and those kind of things. So we really pause ourselves on just saturating,
Right.
But yeah, we definitely try to get a piece of content out a week, and just capture, sort of what the company's doing. Because that's all we are, is just a group of people that have come together for, a common purpose to push in the same direction. And we want to showcase that.
And it's not only selfish in nature. I mean, there's a lot of other benefits when employees see, like, your town halls and things like that, and the employee's like, oh, shit, that's me.
Yep.
And that really does make an impact.
It does.
From a cultural standpoint.
Agreed.
Within the company. And that's something, again, super critical, I believe, for small companies. Also something that a larger company like an Exterran or ArchRock, they can benefit from it, but less so.
They can, in big companies, it becomes very curated and very.
They're always worried about what's going to be seen.
Exactly, and I think that's what's kind of, and you lose some of the how genuine it is, right?
Yeah, the spontaneity of it.
That's
and
right,
that kind of thing.
And how sincere.
Sure.
When you just make sure everything's perfectly, all your attorneys look at it,
Right.
Everything is just totally polished. When it gets out there, people are like, okay, cool, click. They're not zooming in, looking at people, and that's another thing that we've noticed. And I got to credit my VP of Sales for this, but posts that actually have people's faces get way more clicks and likes than just, hey, check out Baseline. Do you need power?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because everybody's like, oh, look at me, or they're zooming in and saying, man, he's gained weight, or wow, they're looking good. Those kind of things.
Right,
but it just it just gets so many more clicks, and so that's why you see a lot of the faces of Baseline.
Well, it also makes it, even though it's online, there's a hint of a personal connection.
100%.
And people crave that. So it's not misplaced. And then you look at it and you say, you talk about all of the curation of these posts. Like at Wildcat, I pretty much handle all the social media stuff for Wildcat on LinkedIn and whatever. But if someone from the field sends a picture, literally it'll be like, yeah, can you get one that they have safety glasses on at least? That kind of thing. But it's not this long, drawn-out process, and I think that's critical because even though it's a picture, people understand what's not real, and it very easily can come off like, hey, come on, man.
Well, I'll share a funny story with you from
people's FRs aren't pressed. Yeah. Let's just be honest.
Well, one of my most favorite stories, and I was so proud of my service manager at the time because we were sending a picture to the CEO, okay? And we were doing some tests out on a location many, many years ago, and the technician that was in the picture was just really well put together. Shirt was tucked in, all the PPE was there.
It's a hired model.
It was all in the right places. It wasn't, the gas monitor wasn't on their pocket.
Or his hard hat.
Exactly,
whatever,
right? Yeah. He had earplugs in, all those kind of things. And I was like, wow, this is such a great picture. I'm so proud of this individual, right? And then it was so funny. 2 seconds later, says this was the first picture.
It was a travesty. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm not so proud of this guy now, but I'm super proud of you that you understand.
Gave you the first picture, like, we got to fire that guy. Yeah. And then, this other guy's awesome. This guy's got to go. His twins got to go.
It was hilarious. And
That's
I still
awesome,
remember
man.
it. It was probably a decade ago when that happened. I still think about it all the time because, perception is reality, and we've got to be very, very mindful about how we manage that, right? Because impressions matter. And,
they do.
And that's why, when you talk about being somewhat careful about the spontaneity of just posting stuff, it could you're trying to do the right thing, but it could end up being the wrong thing,
We're not all Elon Musk.
100%.
We can't
That's
just
right.
post whatever we want, and it does
I just
not
can't
matter.
get up. Yes.
Yeah. After the election last night, he posted a picture of him photoshopped into the Oval Office holding a sink, and the post was, let that sink in. And I was like,
oh, how funny.
This guy, he's the coolest guy.
Well,
billionaire.
Yeah,
shit talker.
When he said when he got up in front of that conference and he just tells somebody, in front of thousands of people, posted all, go F yourself.
Yeah.
And you're just like, whoa.
Go yourself.
Yeah.
Is that clear?
Yeah, it was crazy.
It's crystal clear, sir.
I'm not sure that's the best thing, but but he can definitely do it.
Yeah, no, he has definite FU money, and that's okay. Well, man, I can tell you, like I said, I've known you a long time. You always had a lot of passion when we worked together at Exterran and ArchRock, but seeing the energy level, the passion you have here, this is where you belong.
Oh, I appreciate it, man.
And it's really been awesome, and Baseline's blessed to have you there, and I know that you enjoy what you're doing, and the company's growing, and where can people go to find more information about Baseline and what they offer and how they can get engaged with your company?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways. They can go through all the standard job postings, look for postings there, but that you can visit our website, go to the careers page, and just pretty standard ways of finding us, baseline.com and check out our website. And again, respond to some of those posts. We have, folks that manage and look at comments every single day. To make sure that we're good stewards and that we're listening, because a lot of times that's how people choose to communicate, good or bad.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that we manage that appropriately. Mostly bad, yeah. That's right.
Most of the time people have a comment, and not a great one. It's not a great one, but
that's right.
But man, it's awesome to get to connect with you again. You're one of my favorite people, and love you, love your family.
I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you taking time to sit with us today and just chat.
It's great to also see how your career has matured, and what you do here on this podcast requires so much confidence and so much courage just to take random guests and have conversations with them, and you're really, really good at that.
Appreciate it.
But that's a God-given gift that you have, and so from myself, having the opportunity to do this with you is a great honor. And then, more importantly, just to be around a person that has that kind of confidence, it rubs off a little bit. So just know we all don't have it, and we're in awe of your skills and talents, and keep putting them to good use.
I'll do my best, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me.
Thanks, bud.
Yep.